Raiffeisen Bank International. I will talk about us in a minute, but let me first say that it's a pleasure to speak after Markus, who is doing this quite some time, and actually what he has now been sharing with us and the different goals and strategies that you can have as a CVC. I want to very much build on that and share with you what our discussions within Raiffeisen Bank International were and what the journey was on how we started from myself being a one-man show in dealing with these startups somewhere outside there to having a fully fledged startup program plus a venture capital unit with an own team doing investments now since 2018 quite successfully. We will have my slides here. Yes, thank you. So before starting talking about Elevator Ventures, I want to quickly say here in this round a few words about Raiffeisen Bank International, because maybe not everyone has came across this Austrian bank. We share the name Raiffeisen with the German Raiffeisen banks, but this is all that we share. We are Raiffeisen Bank with Raiffeisen Bank International headquartered in Vienna in Austria, and 60% of our shareholders are the Austrian local Raiffeisen banks. After the Iron Curtain fell in 1990s, 2000s, the Austrian Raiffeisen banks decided to use this opportunity and build and bring Western banking to Central and Eastern Europe. And as you can see, the footprint here, have been doing business in 13 markets ever since then, and are now serving close to 17 million customers, a balance sheet of roughly 150 billion, if I'm not mistaken now. So I would say on a European level, middle-sized bank. For Elevator Ventures, that's important because we want to use the assets that we have from our mothership also for our portfolio companies. We want to use it for the whole value chain of venture capital investments. So also our scouting and sourcing is very much focused on this region because there we say we have an edge. We have the network, the access to highly relevant companies from the region, maybe before the one or the other foreign investor would look at them. So how did the whole journey of ending up having an own venture capital unit start? And by explaining to you now a little bit this journey, I can also share a bit about my personal journey in Raiffeisen Bank International. So in 2017, I started in RBI, and we've been building an innovation strategy that was actually made up of these three vehicles that you can see here. An entrepreneurship program on your left side, the Elevator Lab, which was or is still our fintech partnership program, and Elevator Ventures, our venture capital arm that I'm representing today to you. So in 2017, there were the one or the other contacts to startups. There was not really a cooperation between any of the bank units and the startups, and there was nothing like a structured process of how to deal with startups. And we had discussions about, okay, how shall we approach that? We all know that there's something happening out there, but we are not yet on this train, but we want to be there. And we decided back then that before we start investing venture capital into fintechs, we want to build on and also educate the organization on how to deal with fintechs. So we decided before we build all three vehicles and we start right away with the lab and the ventures. Let's first establish the lab and try to get some fintechs into the organization, maybe some companies that are not highly disruptive, but actually adjacent innovation, product development topics, where we can prove to the organization that it's not a fancy-pantsy ivory tower exercise with some events that are happening and nothing else is really produced, then costs, but that you can actually create value for the co-organization by looking at these startups and engaging with them. We did this in 2017 for the first time. It was like I felt I was running around alone back then. A year later, I had a team of 10 people, and we were actually having elevator labs in 11 countries of RBI. But when I started and I went to the business lines of the bank, I felt a huge relief that finally someone takes care of this topic. And actually, despite there were voices that said you will never succeed with that, I ran into a lot of open doors of top management people within the bank. So we started with the lab. We run a lot of pilot projects. We had very interesting applications, not only from Central and Eastern Europe, but from everywhere. But mainly we saw that that there are just too many opportunities out there that we couldn't digest. Maybe one anecdote on that, when we had one demo day and the final selection day, actually it was, where we selected the participants of this program, we had already invested in one fund of fund investment, namely into Speed Invest back then. That was and I will come to that, that was our first step into venture capital. And one of the partners, Stefan Klistel, was there at our final selection day, and he said to me after the event, we stood together at the drink, and he was like, "Max, great, congratulations on this, on the high quality of applicants that you had and the whole event. But you know what? I would have chosen exactly the other startups that you had chosen for an investment. So why did you choose these ones?" And this made us think. I mean, these two vehicles, of course, are communicating with each other. And as I said, I truly believe that a corporate that has established an internal program on how to deal with startups and how to onboard them and how to contract with them and how to include this into a product suite and so on is a basis for the venture capital. But from their goals and from their activities and from their decision processes, they're inherently different. A venture capitalist is looking at different things than a corporate startup program manager. Why? Because in the lab, we had the goal of creating value in partnerships. So what does that mean? You have to onboard the business line from day one. They have to have the feeling that they own the startup. If they have the feeling that that this is something that the ivory tower people in the innovation, or they are sitting in some co-working space and they wear the sneakers and so on, and they are teaching us now. Which companies we need to choose. You are lost from day one as an innovation manager. So we were trying to onboard them from day one. They could choose the topics that we were looking at. They were choosing which companies they want to work with. They were running the show. They were standing on the stage, and that's why out of this program actually a lot of long-term partnerships with fintechs were coming out. But what we saw and what we learned was twofold. First of all, that these partnerships work. We created value for the startups and for us. And I mean, we are in a bank, so probably this thought was kind of natural for our group CEO and head of strategy and the people, the CFO, etc., who were involved in the strategic discussions. They said, "Naja, guys, if we are now creating value for these people and we are bringing them to new countries, why are we not invested in these companies? Yeah? Why don't we actually benefit as an equity shareholder as well?" Okay, natural thought for a banker. But the second thought, and I think that goes along the lines that Markus mentioned, was equally, we see that we have a lot of disruptive, potentially interesting companies that might be down the road interesting for the bank, that no one is choosing for these programs. In 2017, we had applicants in our batch that in 19 were raising large funding rounds. Had we invested in them in 2017, that would have paid off quite nicely. And so we said, it doesn't only make sense to invest in the alumni of the Elevator Lab, but we want to have an Elevator Ventures fund that is independent from the organization, that is purely financially governed and steered, that can invest in the alumni of Elevator Lab if they prove a financial case, and such a pilot project in Elevator Lab is a great due diligence process for sure, but are equally, free to invest in any others more disruptive companies, and that's what we did. And actually, I want to dig deeper now into Elevator Ventures and what we do, why we do it, and how we came there. Leveraging the power of RBI, we are the leading corporate venture capital growth partners for fintechs in Central and Eastern Europe. That's like the goal that we gave ourselves. A lot is in there. We had several discussions around it. You can see that where we want to invest, in what we want to invest, in which stage we want to invest, and why we think we can add value to these companies. But I will come to all of that. So we are investing today in, as said, fintechs. We are investing roughly 1 to 3 million euros initial tickets. We don't want to have more than 25%, but as Markus also said, with up to 3 million euros ticket size, you anyway don't come close in this nowadays world. If you want to invest in more or less established companies in Series A stage, so we don't run the risk of crossing this 25% very often. So how did we start? As I said, in 2018, this thought and actually the success of the lab and the whole thought process that I explained to you was leading us to establishing and setting up this CVC unit. A lot of discussions on, should this be internal, should this be external, should it be in a fund structure, should it be Beteiligungs GmbH that we are now. And we said we need, of course, to be in the rails of the corporate, and we need to adhere to all the governance structures and guidelines and regulations that we have. But the strong mandate that we had from our group CEO was he wants to build within these rails an entity that is as close as to a normal, I would say, VC that's possible, and that's what we tried. So I will show you the team that we hired. We hired venture capitalists. We have an mandate to invest freely. We have a clear financial KPIs that we need to reach, and we have an investment committee that is made up of by now five top management people from the bank. There is our CFO is in there, our head of strategy is in there, head of equity participations, and then 2 business lines representatives. And in this committee, the decision process is fast. The decision process is free from politics, I would say. Yeah. So there is no business line alignments and other stuff happening, but it's really us presenting the venture capital case to them, and then they mostly challenge us on the question: does this case fly also without RBI? And if we can then say answer this question with yes, then that's a good chance that we get an approval. And everything that we can add on top by potential collaborations with RBI is a plus. We started then with a fund-of-fund investment into Speed Invest, simply because of, I would say, 2 reasons. We didn't have a team yet that could do venture capital investments ourselves. And we were lucky that one of the most active fintech VCs in Europe was actually just 5 minutes from our office in Vienna. And this proved really valuable for us. We had then people actually sitting with Speed Invest for the first half a year. We were very close still with them. We learned a lot. We got a good network, and I would say that was a good strategy for us. And then we built a team. We started to build our own portfolio. We had gotten a commitment of 50 million euros by RBI to invest now over the next 5 years and build a portfolio of 12 to 15 companies. We are on track. We have so far invested in 10 companies. A little bit out of plan was the last year, because last year we exited 3 of these companies. That was a bit surprising, but I don't need to tell you that the market dynamics are just what they are at the moment, and some offers you cannot resist. And there's more to come. We are thinking at the moment a lot about topics that Markus just mentioned. What's the right organizational setup that we want to have going forward? Do we want to engage in more fund-of-fund investments? What is the right size? Do we need to go earlier, or do we need to enlarge our tickets? There's all discussions that we are having at the moment. The journey is exciting for everyone, and also for the top management. That's us, that's the team. Maybe also interesting for everyone who wants to set up a CVC. We did it in a way, or our top management decided to make 2 people from the bank, so myself and Thomas, to become the managing directors, but we are the only ones who actually have previous history with the bank. All the rest of the team is actually coming from different VCs from our core region or even further away. Last year we hired 2 senior investment managers, and I can only recommend that to anyone who is building a VC team, to actually hire people who already were in VC before. These are our portfolio investments. I will not go now into the details of it, but I think what I want to highlight is that one of the hypotheses is that we are seeing that financial services is going into different verticals, and there are more and more companies from different verticals that are becoming fintechs in a way. So we have been investing, for example, in 2 agricultural companies that are embedding finance into the agricultural process. That's working very well, and we're very happy about that. But we have done buy now, pay later providers like Twisto. We exited the Czech company. We have done RegTech, Austrian company with a K, has been sold to Moody's Analytics last year. That's a very nice story, because actually their product was brought to an enterprise level in our elevator lab. We then were the first customer to use it on an enterprise, the enterprise solution. We invested in them. They sold to many different banks in Western Europe, in the US, and somehow came on the radar of Moody's. And last year, the exit happened. We invested in open banking, in e-commerce, in logistics. Just the day before yesterday, we announced the investment into Bird, an Austrian logistics and fulfillment provider. And the last box, I needed to delete the logo yesterday, but it will be communicated I don't know, today, maybe in the next days, is a very interesting fraud prevention and fraud risk scoring model for the banking industry. So fintech is not only payments and lending. There's much more that we consider as fintech. If I'm asked if a company is still in our focus, then I always ask back, can we help them? Can we help them beyond a mere financial investment? And if then the answer is yes, then my answer is then they are in our focus. I have brought then some examples on where RBI is also working with our companies. The story of the company with K, I already told you. Pisano is a customer experience management platform that is embedded now in, I think, 6 of our countries already. CloudCard is an e-commerce platform that we embed in the merchant offering of the bank. So in the future, we don't only sell POS services or card issuing and card processing solutions to merchants, but we can also sell the whole e-commerce shop and everything that comes with it. Good. I think that was it. Would be happy to have you as followers on our social media channels, of course. Also, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter quarterly, not spam, but actually stories about fintechs in Central and Eastern Europe, in case you're interested. Thank you very much for your attention and happy to answer questions.